Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show, and today again we're going to be looking at some comments and possibly a challenge that has been set before me, or at least a curveball. Senor Freeze commented, "Here's a curveball for you, Minion. I own a Reclaimer and a BMM, so why do I need a Caterpillar anymore?" Haha. You know, that's actually a difficult question to answer. I mean, if you're in a situation, let's say, where you have an immediate need for a good cargo hauler in the game right now, like let's say you're out there with a Reclaimer and you find a Javelin, like a whole Javelin just smashed against an asteroid, and you're like, holy crap, this is more than my Reclaimer can haul. Then maybe you can have that Caterpillar running back and forth between wherever you are in Olisar, just dropping off all that scrap metal and earning you that money while you're out there reclaiming this giant wreck and, you know, selling the components, selling the scrap metal, coming back. Whereas the Banu Merchantman, you're still probably going to be waiting 2 years on that, whereas chances are your Reclaimer is going to start to reclaim by June, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so you might need something. If you're dealing with salvage in large volumes, you may need something to run that cargo for you, in which case, you know, the Caterpillar is still ideal. It's still a great hauler. So for that reason, I would say probably it'd still be a good idea to keep the Caterpillar. But long term, against the Banu Merchantman, they feel like a mismatch. Like, some people might say, oh, well, you know, you can use the Caterpillar to augment your Banu Merchantman, and it could follow you along through space and carry extra cargo. But I mean, the Banu Merchantman kind of feels like a long range hauler, whereas the Caterpillar feels more like a regional ship to me. Like, I don't have, and I don't think there is out there, any kind of actual measure like the Banu Merchantman goes this far before it needs a refuel, whereas the Caterpillar only goes this far. But it feels like the Banu Merchantman would easily go further than the Caterpillar. And so you may end up in a situation where, sure, the Caterpillar can augment how much cargo you can move, but every couple of systems you got to stop and wait for the Caterpillar to load up and or refuel and then follow you along, and that can eat into your time and be something of an annoyance. So I don't know how well those two ships would mesh up together. And when you look at the price of the Caterpillar, if you purchased a Caterpillar just recently, that's what, $295 that you could spend elsewhere. There may be other ways that you can augment your fleet to improve, you know, your standard of living, or improve your, you know, to build a better springboard so that when you get into the game and everything counts, that you're able to leap forward and really start making that money faster. It's really tough to tell because there's a lot in the game that is still undefined, you know, item system 2.0, all the augmentations that you can do, and certainly, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do with the Caterpillar that we just don't know about yet. We only have cargo modules. We don't know what the other modules are. So there's a lot of unanswered questions around the Caterpillar, which kind of make this, I mean, it almost becomes a personal feel question at this point. Like you have to roll the dice and just say, this is where I think things are going, this is where it's safe. I think that if you're just using it to augment the Reclaimer while it's on the job, not a bad idea. But if you're looking for a long-range cargo hauler, it may kind of fill the gap until the Banu Merchantman shows up. But then by the time the Banu Merchantman shows up, are you really going to be able to, like, liquidate the ship and turn it into something else useful? Or is there going to be something that's even better? Like, could the Hull C be even better than the Caterpillar for all those jobs? And you might say, oh, well, shit, I should just spend this money on a Hull C. Or maybe you'll find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, I'd rather have like $300 worth of escort ships protecting my Reclaimer instead of having the Caterpillar to augment its ability to basically salvage wrecks. So it's a difficult question. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. which is kind of why you don't want to fall in love with ships too much. You kind of want to, you want to make logical choices with the core pieces of your fleet, because you always want to make sure that when you get into the game, you have a fairly robust system for making credits, because in the end, credits are going to be what allows you to do whatever you want to do in the game. It's basically like your freedom to just do what you want to do when you want to do it. If you've got the money, you can. If you don't, you can't, right? And so when you get into game, you want to have the best things to kind of put yourself, to push yourself forward, And the Caterpillar may or may not be it. I mean, it depends. There's certain things that I think we still have to see. And also, in the end, you're going to have to do what feels right for you, right? Like when you sit down and you look at your fleet and you look at your hangar and you go, I really feel like, when you look at your ships and you go, I really feel that this ship doesn't belong anymore. Like this ship has now become redundant. Maybe there's something else, like maybe there's another field that you could explore. And I mean, certainly, if you sell a Caterpillar, there's a lot of other ships that you can buy. I mean, you could go buy a Herald, you could buy a Cutlass, you could buy a friggin' Hawk. And I mean, you could buy pretty much all of those ships for what you spent on the Caterpillar, potentially, depending on when you got your Caterpillar. And that might be more attractive to you than just having, the Caterpillar. So in the end, that's kind of a call that you would have to make for yourself, but those would be some of the points that I would consider in trying to make that decision. Hope that helps. All right, next, the Canadian Whale. Hey, James Cameron raised the bar, I'll have you know. I know, trust me, I know. I mean, Terminator 2, The Abyss, those movies were amazing. Aliens, come on. Like the films that he's created are incredible. And I mean, certainly when you kind of look at, so many of the films that came out of the 80s or the late 70s, and you kind of put them up against the movies that we're getting today. I mean, the hilarious and sad comments that some people have made, like, oh my God, Star Wars The Last Jedi was the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. It's the best. LOL. I mean, go back. Literally, like, whenever people are defending these movies, and they'll use different things. Oh, people don't like it because they're sexist, or, all this stuff, and people try to drag all this fucking crap into it. But realistically, if you go back and you look at some of the great films, like, once again, James Cameron or Steven Spielberg have directed, like, these guys can direct an action sequence. These guys can tell a visual story, but they can also deliver a strong narrative with that story. They can deliver a strong story that helps support all these amazing visuals, whereas today's directors, they're glorified Super Bowl commercial directors. They can't tell a story. They can make things look cool. They can make things pop. Oh, look at all the flashing lights, and look at these X-Wings dodging around. Oh my God, it's so good. But, they can't write or tell a story to save their lives. And that's the thing. Like, I understand why there's a lot of people who like The Last Jedi. I certainly understand the visual appeal of it, the visual style. If you look at it strictly based on special effects and action sequences, they're fun to watch. They're really interesting. If you look at it in terms of, are these scenes energetic? Do they pump you up? Yeah, certainly. I mean, the opening scene in The Last Jedi where he's teasing Admiral Weasley or whatever his name is. When Poe's doing that, that's a really funny and playful scene, and it's fun. But overall, the entire narrative of the movie makes no fucking sense. I mean, it taken against the previous Star Wars films, it makes no sense. James Cameron is one of the last directors out there, especially when you look at with this current generation of directors. He's one of the last guys out there who actually knows how to direct a movie. He's one of the last people out there who certainly knows how to tell a story. And you know, I wish that he would stop doing this bottom of the ocean shit and get back to doing what he's amazing at, which is directing movies and showing these kids how it's actually done. All right, next up, George Hadfield. I personally think they may wait till the Vulture, the solo salvage ship, reaches concept to bring up the idea of the cutter. How perfect would that be? Everyone with a reclaimer gets a solo salvage ship for when they can't afford to have a full crew. And the Vulture truly does become the perfect stepping stone to the reclaimer, as it can integrate itself with the reclaimer. I think they're just waiting to finalize and work out salvaging to answer these questions. If that was the plan, if that is what CIG is doing, that is some next level shit, because that dude is a fucking genius idea. In all honesty, that is like, if they just sat there and they said, you know what, you can do whatever you want with the Vulture, you can make it look however you want, but just make sure it has a docking ring that fits like onto the reclaimer. That's the only stipulation. That's the only requirement, is it has a docking ring that you can latch onto the reclaimer, and just have the reclaimer carry it around. Just have it just be like a part of the ship that, you know, just like in combat, you know, all these different parts of the ship can be blown off, can be detached. It just becomes part of the ship that you can detach and fly around. There's got to be some kind of way to work around that system to allow two ships to dock together and then one to carry another, in much the same way that a fighter can dock inside an Idris and the Idris can fly away with the fighter inside of it, and not just like, okay, the Idris goes to Quantum and then the Hornet, you know, just slams against the rear wall because it's not technically attached. There's got to be a way to do that. And if that was the actual play, if that is the game that CIG is playing with the cutter, if that's what they're actually going to do, then that would be a genius move. I mean, like the idea of using it as a stepping stone, and then you could take your Vulture and just latch it onto your reclaimer and like basically like have your cake and eat it too, and have both ships working on one wreck and maybe increase the efficiency of your salvaging operation. That's a brilliant idea. That, I mean, if CIG did that, I mean, that would be amazing. I think like that is a fucking genius idea right there. Well, I think that is where we are going to leave it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the spontaneous movie criticism. Anyways, yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.